Welcome back to the Avenue. I'm Adrian, and I'm so glad you're here. If you're returning, thank you for coming in again. If you're new, thank you for joining us today. The number one question, you guys, that I get and have been getting lately, especially since the new administration has been in office in Washington, is I'm a little afraid about retirement. What am I going to do when I retire? I don't know how to retire now, and they're just real nervous about where to put the money to make sure it's safe and secure. So we're going to talk about retirement just a little bit today. Stay tuned. Now, my followers, the majority of them are between the ages of 50 and about 65. So if you're younger than that, you're getting a very good head start on life in general. Hang in there with me. If you're between that age, you can probably learn quite a bit off of this channel. But thank you all for coming in. Now, the questions that I've been getting on retirement, they're things that we need to think about. They're things that make sense, especially right now in these days and times. But I would say, especially when I retired from the company I used to work for, there was not a lot of information that came from the company when it came to retiring well. They just didn't teach you a lot. You know, you learned about your benefits after you retire and that sort of thing, but they didn't teach you about, you know, the emotional side of moving from one job to retirement, that next chapter, anything like that. And you hope that your finances were right. Because I like to look stuff up, because I like to study, all my stuff was in order. So I knew I could financially retire. I knew I was mentally ready. I knew I was physically ready. And I was actually retiring to real estate. So I was retiring to something else. It wasn't just to retire and you know, travel around or do whatever I wanted to do, which I do what I want to do, but it was retiring to a different career. And I'm enjoying that immensely. So what we're going to talk about today, help you out, just some steps that you need to take beforehand. And if you're younger, haven't retired yet, this is going to be great because there are some questions that you need to ask yourself before you get to that retirement spot where you know that it is time to go. Because some people, they get there, they know the date that they want to retire and they may have the money, but they don't have plans beyond that. And just like you plan your way for a trip or plan anything else, once you retire, you need to have plans. And we're going to get right into that. Now, I did go and see, it was offered here in Austin. I did go and see the movie, The Psychology of Retirement. I was very interested in that. It's only about an hour long. If it's offered anywhere in your area, I would say go and see it. It is real, true life. I could see myself in some of those scenarios when people either freshly retired or hadn't retired, but they didn't know the questions to ask. They didn't know what they were going to do in retirement. It's a lot that you just don't know because this is something that the people that's retired before you, they really don't come back and discuss this with you. And then unless you reach out or have a financial advisor, you don't know to even ask these questions. So this is a good video to be in. And so hang in there because we're going to go through some of these questions that you need to ask yourself ahead of time before you even step outside of that job. Your very first question should be, or at the top of the list is, have I saved enough money to retire comfortably? And that will depend on how early you start saving. What do you think will help you retire comfortably? If you're thinking of taking on, you know, another job or whatever it is, have you saved enough? Do you feel secure that if you let that job go right now, that you could make it without worrying, without losing sleep or anything like that, that you have the money you need to get along for the next 20, 30, 40 years, however long you expect to live? And people are living longer these days, you all. So, but have you saved enough? That should be your very first question. Because if you've only saved, you know, 5,000, 50,000, 100,000, it may not be enough to live the lifestyle that you want to live. A lot of people, when they're asked that, $1 million comes out of their mouth, you know. And there are various calculators that you can bring up to calculate how much you really need, but that's really going to depend on your lifestyle and how you're going to spend that money. But have you saved enough to even consider retirement? Next up is your income. Do you have passive income sources Or are you expecting yourself to work a job to have some active income come in? Now, passive income sources could be investments that you're cashing in or making dividends from, that you're going to pull that money out. It could be rental property that you're getting monthly payments on. It could be a pension that your job had for you or has for you. It could be eventually Social Security. These are all passive forms of income that you can have coming in other than just working a job. That's active form of income. But most jobs these days, most companies don't offer pension anymore. I was fortunate, I got pension before I retired. And so that's a check that comes in every month, even though you're not working for that company. Normally, the governments will give you some form of a retirement fund or pension that you can draw from and, live out your life. That's one source of income coming in. Another source could be rental property. Another source could be your investments. So normally when people have all this worked out, they don't retire broke. Some people retire in a better position in retirement than they were when they were working, but it took steps to get there. They didn't just get there. Just they woke up one day, decided they were retired, and everything was coming in like they thought it should. That's not the way it happens. It's careful planning to get you to that spot. But just know there are going to be some sources of income that's needing to come in before you actually can retire. Now, pension is a game changer for most people because that's income coming in that most people these days, when they retire from these companies, they don't get. The thing about pension is it does not adjust for inflation or cost of living. Whatever your check is going to be about the same amount that your check is always going to be for the rest of your retirement period. But it could be a nice size check and it could cover everything, especially if you don't have a lot of expenses. So keep that in mind also. But you need some sources of income coming in your retirement. Another question that comes up is, when should I start taking Social Security? Now, we've heard a lot of things about Social Security, how it's going to be not possibly cut totally off, but cut down a percentage, cut down 10, 15, 30% by a certain time frame in the near future. And so we have that to contend with. But when should you start taking Social Security? Should you start at 62? Which will give you, it's not your full Social Security amount. Most people now, they have to go to 67 to get their full Social Security amount. And then at 70, pretty much you have to start taking Social Security at that point in time. But the longer you wait, the more money you will get in, when you start taking it on a monthly basis. So that's totally up to you to decide. You, and I'd say your financial advisor, probably need to talk about this, because there are also tax implications that you need to be aware of when you have money coming in and you're taking Social Security. So keep all of that in mind, and the best way to do it is with a financial advisor. Now, the company that I use is my financial advisors. They're the ones that handle my investments and everything when I move my 401k over, is Empower. That company is great. It's been good to me. And if you want to talk to them, there's a link down in the video notes that you can go in and actually visit with them. Now, they do charge a fee. I pay them, but they manage my money. I don't have to look at a computer all day long to see what's going on with that. Now, I do have some money that I do manage myself, some investments that I manage myself, but they help me with taxes. They help me with questions as far as when to take Social Security. They have graphs that will have various situations as the economy changes, as you age, as your income changes. If I sell a house, anything like that, as far as rental property, they have scenarios and they will give you a percentage that if you continue along the lines that you're continuing along, that you will actually meet either 95, 90%, 99%, get to where you want to be. And they will show you the graphs that where you're starting right now, and as you leave the money in there and it gets compound interest and just makes money for you at the rate, where you're going to be when you get, in your 70s, 80s, 90s, 60s, when you want to start drawing it out. They also help you with a plan to start spending that money, because at some point in time, you're gonna have to start spending some money. They will also help you with a plan to help you think about what you want retirement to look like, what you want, if you want to leave a legacy, what is it that you want to leave to someone else when you pass on. So they're a great company for all of that, and their link will be in the show notes below, because that's who I use, Empower. Now I want you to hit that like button and that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date as the latest information becomes available to you. And if you have retired, let me have a comment. Let me know what you're doing now. If you have not retired, give me a comment. Is this information helpful to you? Hopefully you can pick up on a few tips that will help you when you get to that point, and you'll be much more educated when it's time to retire. More educated even than I was when it was like, okay, this is the date and this is the money I have saved. And I did other research, like I said, but hopefully this will help you with whatever additional research you may have to do to make it solid. This is when I'm going to step away from that company, and this is when I'm going to retire and go into my next chapter of life. Speaking of next chapter of life, what you want to think about before you retire is your home. If you own a home, is it too big? You know, are the kids out? Do you want to downsize? Do you want to move somewhere else? You may want to move to another area, a different state, a different country to retire in. You have all these things that you can do, you can think about if you're prepared when you actually retire. So think about those things. If you've been living in the house you want to live in and you've been upgrading it and doing the things that you want to do to make it retirement friendly, because we know the older we get, we may not want to climb stairs. We may not want to do certain things in the house. We may want everything on one level. Have you been moving in that direction because you've decided this is where I want to be? I'm familiar with the neighborhood. I don't want to leave. I don't want to go to another country. I can travel there, but these are where, you know, my relatives are. This is where I want to stay. This is where I want to eventually die. And so, you know, this is it for me. Or venture out to other states to see, maybe you want to move to another state. Maybe you want to move to Texas where we don't have a state tax. You have all of those things to think about once you retire. So think about those things before you get to that next chapter. The next thing I want you to think about is, will you continue to work? Some people want to work not because they need the income. They just want to work to be out there meeting people, kind of still enjoying life. And so they go out and find like a part-time job or do some counseling, something like that. They may want to do something like that. And if you want to work, that's perfectly fine. You can continue working. If you don't want to work, have the money set aside where you don't have to work. That's great. But that's a decision that you'll have to make. You can also volunteer if you want to do something like that. You can volunteer at the local hospital, libraries. There are other things you can do if you don't need the income to help other people and just get out there in the community. This is the biggie. One thing you do need to consider when you retire is health care. Get a health policy somewhere, get health insurance. Sometimes if you retire, your company will bring that health policy over and let you use that. Sometimes you have to find your own health insurance. And sometimes once you start taking Social Security, you go on Medicare. And so, but you make sure you get this taken care of, because as we age, the medical conditions come up. Things just come up. The body starts to go down and things start to come up. And I'm not, trying to say everybody's body's going to go down, but just the normal process of aging, there may be some things that come up. So if they do, medical procedures, medical services are extremely high. I would not suggest anybody to go that alone, because one trip to the emergency room and you could be paying $10,000 to $20,000 and not even stay overnight. So make sure you get that taken care of, the health, because once you start aging, the health costs start going up, whether it's health insurance or just the cost of being healthy, the cost of going to the doctor, the dentist, the eye doctor, all these people. It starts going up. And so you want to make sure you take care of your body. I would say for sure to have some type of estate plan or will or trust before you, as you retire, because when you do pass on, you want to make sure your legacy is in order, and you can leave the things that you want to leave to the people that you want to leave them to, or the institutions you want to leave them to. So make sure you get this taken care of, because we never know. You can be working. You don't have to retire to die. You could be working, but get this taken care of as soon as possible. That way you don't have to worry about it. You can travel, do whatever you want to, and know that everything is taken care of. Let me stop here and just say a word about Social Security. When I went to see the movie, The Psychology of Retirement, one thing that I learned that I did not know, and you may not know, is that Social Security was really never meant to be your sole source of income after retirement. It was meant to be supplemental after retirement. So it was meant to help the low to middle income people, the fatherless, the people in poverty, to help them during their old age and when they actually retire. But it was never really meant to be your sole source of income. A lot of people use it as, this is the only money I have coming in. And that's a huge, huge mistake. If you knew the history behind Social Security, you would know, which I didn't know until I saw this movie, that it was never meant to be the only thing you got, and you lived off of it, and that was it. You should have other sources of income coming in to supplement your Social Security. So just keep that in mind, and I wanted to bring that up just to be clear that that's what it was meant to be when it first came into play. Now, let's briefly talk about, we've gotten to this point, and this is the main point of the video. I want to briefly talk about how to retire well. The first thing I want you to do is to start early, as soon as you possibly can. 401k plans, Roth IRAs, 401k, Roth 401ks, all of those will help you with retirement. Putting money aside that you don't get to touch in your younger age, it gets to mature, it gets to gain interest, it gets to grow. So when it's time for you to retire, you will have possibly millions with an S out there saved up for you. Also, you can do some investing yourself to get you to that point, if you promise not to touch those investments until you get there. So, but start early, and put money in often. Just set aside a certain amount aside for that. You will guarantee you will thank yourself when you get older and you get to that date of retirement. You could potentially retire earlier than you thought you could once you see the money piling up and you decide, okay, that's enough. I can step out now. Retiring well is also about not putting all your eggs in one basket. Like I did, I never wanted to have everything and count on everything, because if that egg cracks, guess what? I mean, it's ruined for everything. I want to put my eggs in different baskets. And so 401k may be one, Roth IRA may be one, it may be rental property may be one, my own personal investments may be one. It could be various things, but just don't count on one source to be your only source of income, passive or active source of income, when you actually retire. So don't, because things happen. Economy changes, and the thing is that will guard against your money going down, because if you have them in some of these funds and it goes down, you're a certain age, you don't have time to recover. And that's the biggest question that I have been getting lately is, I have the money and I'm thinking about retiring, or I'm already retired. I just need to know where to put the money now so that I won't lose it all. I want to put it somewhere to make some money, but I don't want to lose it all. People are looking at even annuities. Annuities is another option that's issued by financial institutions. And depending on how much money you put in there, there may be a waiting period before you can start pulling it out. But you put it in there, they invest it for you, then you can start pulling it out on a monthly basis. But don't just think you can put $100,000 in there and get $10,000 a month out. They have all that calculated with how long you potentially can live and how they're going to invest it for you. There's some fees, quite a few fees also associated with annuities. So check all of that out before you decide to just drop your money in an annuity also. Next up, we want to make sure you make plans for healthcare like we've already talked about. Also, make plans for how you're going to live, if you're going to remain in your house, if you're going to move out of the country, if you're going to downsize, if you're going to, move to a community where people your age live, whatever it is, go ahead and make those plans and go check those places out to decide before you actually hit the retirement button. Pay off debt, pay off debt, pay off debt. Did I tell you to pay off debt? That's what you need to do. That will help with your retirement, because the more debt you pay off, just think if you didn't have a car payment, if you didn't have a house payment, if you didn't have those bills, you wouldn't need as much money to live off of, or you can enjoy the money in a different way. So pay your debt down as low as possible and off if you possibly can. I wish everyone could retire with zero debt. But those nagging debts, such as the credit cards and some of these loans out there, you want to get them paid off for sure. You want to make sure, if you still have a house payment, that you can't afford that or have passive income coming in to take care of your house insurance and taxes. You need that at least taken care of, because you don't want to lose a house behind something like that. Have a game plan. Even if you come out of retirement, maybe in the next 5 years, you will be paying the house off. The next 10 years, you'll be paying the house off. Who wants to be 80, 85, 90 years old still making a house payment? I know I don't. So make plans, do the right thing. If you need to downsize or whatever it is you need to do, make sure you do that before you retire. This step right here is probably the most missed step out there. And this was driven home in that movie that I went to see, is you have to have a retirement budget. You know that I've been telling you guys to have a budget. Otherwise, like when you're working, have a budget to get to your goals. When you retire, you need a retirement budget. You need to know how much money that you have coming in, how much you have going out, and when you're going to take that money, what money you're going to pull for trips. Put all of that in your budget. And, like I said, Empower will help you with all of this stuff. And that's who I use. But have a budget for yourself, so once you step outside of the company into retirement, you'll know exactly how much you have coming in and where that money is going to go. So you can feel real secure and real sure about your decision. You won't be wondering, you won't be up at night, you won't have to get a second job or any of that. Because some people get out in retirement and see that, oh, I don't have enough for this, I don't have enough for that, and they have to go back to work. It's not an option. They have to go back to work to make ends meet. So I don't want you to be one of those. So make sure you have a retirement budget that goes along with the lifestyle you want to live in retirement. And last but not least, to retire well is to make sure you take care of yourself. If you need to relax, if you need to take a day off, if you need to go to the spa, if you need to get a massage, whatever it is, make sure you take care of yourself. You're only one you. You only got one body. That's all you're given. And if you don't take care of yourself, you're not given another one. So let's take care of ourselves once we retire. Pay attention to what your body's saying, because your body talks to you. So if something doesn't feel right, something's not going right, go get it checked out and, do the things that you need to do to get better in that area. But take care of yourself. Don't run yourself into the ground. Don't let other people spoil your happiness, spoil your joy, spoil your life by their issues and their decisions that they've made to bring them to whatever point that they're at. Take care of yourself, all right? So hopefully this has been helpful to you. Hopefully you know more about how to retire well. And with that said, I will see you in the next video.